Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Liam Spencer had been wrestling with his heart for weeks, pacing the beach house in Malibu at all hours of the night, unable to sleep, thinking about Hope Logan and the life they had shared and the one they could still have if only they dared to try. Again, he divorced Steffi because the wounds and betrayals were too complicated to heal. Hope, on the other hand, had been adrift since Thomas's manipulations came to light yet again, her trust in him obliterated. The timing seemed impossible, yet fate had a way of pressing moments into existence. Before anyone was ready, Liam had been planning something quietly without telling anyone. Not Bill, not Wyatt, because he didn't want interference, judgment, or well-intentioned advice to sway him. He was going to propose to Hope, and not just casually by saying, "Let's give it another try." He was going to lay his soul bare and tell her that she was the love of his life, the mother of his daughter, the only woman who had truly anchored him through every storm. Carter Walton, on the other side of town at Forrester Creations, was acting, at least from the outside, like he was in command as he walked through the executive offices. He believed Katie Logan was committed and that she saw him as her future, and their relationship had been challenging but fulfilling. But deep down, Carter knew Katie's heart was fragile and tangled in old loyalties, namely her connection to Bill. The long pauses when Bill's name came up, the sudden business phone calls she would take in another room, and the way her eyes sometimes darted away when he asked where she had been were all warning signs that he had ignored. But Carter had convinced himself that love could overpower insecurity, that trust could silence doubt, that illusion was about to fall apart in a way that would be seen by everyone and be devastating. On a crisp afternoon, Liam called Hope and asked her to meet him at the cabin. His voice had an urgency that made her stomach turn with a mixture of curiosity and dread. She had been through enough emotional roller coasters lately to be wary, but something about Liam's tone softened her defenses. She agreed. The cabin was lit by candles when she got there. The sun was shining through the windows, and a bouquet of her favorite wildflowers was on the coffee table. With his hands clasped in front of him, Liam was dressed in a suit that appeared to have been freshly tailored and stood by the fireplace. "Hope," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about where we've been, and about where I want to go." She listened intently, her heart racing. Liam stepped closer, took her hands in his, and continued, "We have both committed errors. We've been pulled apart by people and circumstances that should never have had the power to come between us. But every time I look at you, I know one thing for certain. I still love you. And I don't just want you in my life. I want to build our life together forever." After that, Liam pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket with one smooth motion. He dropped to one knee, and Hope gasped as he opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Hope Logan," he said, eyes glistening, "will you marry me?" The fact that Carter was in the Forrester office just a few miles away, receiving the news that would destroy him, was something neither of them was aware of, even though the moment appeared to be frozen in time. It started with a phone call from a legal contact, someone Carter trusted implicitly. They told him that Bill Spencer had been spotted leaving Katie's house late last night, not as a visitor on the porch, but as a man who had stayed the night. Carter laughed at first, brushing it off as gossip. The pictures, on the other hand, were sent clear and damning images of Bill and Katie embracing at her front door that morning, his jacket draped over her shoulders and her hair tousled. Carter's hands shook as he scrolled through the images. He tried to convince himself it wasn't what it looked like, but the confirmation came swiftly when Katie walked into the office, looking guilty and flushed. "Carter, we need to
talk," she said softly. He could hear the
hesitation in her voice, the tone of someone about to confess. She did, too. She told him that she had seen Bill more and more lately, that old feelings had resurfaced, that she had realized she couldn't give her whole heart to Carter
when a part of it still belonged to Bill.
The world seemed to tilt beneath him. Carter felt every muscle in his body go rigid as her words sank in.
She
had ignored everything he had given her. His trust, his plans for the future, and his loyalty, as if it had no significance. The man who had stood beside him in business, the man he had defended countless times in the press, was now the man who had stolen his relationship. Bill Spencer, with his smirk in his billions, had taken Katie away without hesitation.
Back at the
cabin, Hope was speechless, staring down at Liam as tears pulled in her eyes.
She
remembered every heartbreak they had endured, every reconciliation, every time they had promised to make it
work.
She knew the risks, but she also knew the depth of her own feelings.
She
whispered, "Yes, Liam. Yes, I will wed
you."
Liam's face broke into a grin of relief and joy as he slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into an embrace. But as they held each other, the fallout from Carter's heartbreak was beginning to ripple across Los Angeles. Carter left Forrester Creations without saying a word to anyone. He drove aimlessly through the city, trying to process the betrayal. Images of Katie's smile, her touch, her whispered promises flashed in his mind, only to be replaced by the crushing reality that she was now back in Bill's arms. Questions whipped around in Carter's head. Was it always Bill? Was Carter merely a stepping stone to reconciliation with the man she truly desired? That evening, Carter showed up, unannounced, at Bill's house. The confrontation was explosive. Carter screamed, "You had everything, Bill. The company, the power, the women, and you still had to take Katie from me."
Bill,
unfazed, leaned against the mantel with his trademark smug expression. "I didn't take her, Carter. She came back to me. You can't steal what was never really yours." The words sliced through Carter like a blade. He realized that Bill wasn't going to apologize. He wasn't even going to pretend to feel remorse. Meanwhile, Liam and Hope's engagement news began to spread. Brooke was thrilled, eager to plan another wedding for her daughter. But Steffi, when she heard, was stunned. Although she was aware that Liam and Hope still shared a bond, she had no idea that he would propose so quickly. Thomas, on the other hand, was livid. He viewed Liam's proposal as an intrusion and a means of securing Hope's loyalty before Thomas could mend their relationship. The pain wasn't going away for Carter. Rather, it was getting worse. He had lost the woman he loved to a man he could never truly compete with in Katie's eyes. But worse, he had lost his faith in people. Every smile now felt suspect, every promise fragile. He threw himself into work, avoiding social gatherings, ignoring messages from friends who were concerned. But late at night, alone in his loft, the silence was deafening. In addition, Carter began to consider retaliation in a way he had never considered before. The morning after Liam's heartfelt proposal, Malibu felt oddly still, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath, awaiting the inevitable storm that would follow. Hope Logan awoke in the cabin, the diamond ring glinting softly on her finger, a symbol of promise and new beginnings. Nevertheless, despite her joy, a tangle of doubt persisted. Could she truly trust this future? Was this love able to withstand the pressures that lay ahead of them after so many betrayals, secrets, and heartbreaks? Liam sat quietly on the porch, watching the waves crash and curl, reflecting on the moment he had just shared with Hope. He was aware that this was more than just about getting married and getting a ring. It was also about healing old wounds, putting past mistakes behind us, and moving forward for the benefit of their daughter, Beth. His mind drifted to Steffi, his ex-wife, the mother of his other children, and someone he still cared for deeply despite everything. He had no illusions that she would take this proposal well. He actually anticipated opposition and possibly even rage. However, he was determined to stick to his decision because it was his. Across town, Carter Walton sat at his sleek kitchen table in his penthouse, the early morning light failing to lift the heavy cloud that had settled over him. The events of the previous day played on repeat in his mind like a cruel movie. The photos of Katie and Bill, Katie's tearful confession and Bill's cold indifference. Carter's world had shattered faster than he could have ever imagined. Although he had always known that Bill Spencer was a formidable adversary who was ruthless in both business and love, he had not anticipated that the man would prevail in this conflict so decisively. Carter reached for his phone and hesitated before dialing Katie's number. When she finally answered, her voice was soft and guarded. "Carter, what's the problem?" she asked cautiously. "Katie, I can't do this anymore. I can't continue to deny the existence of your relationship with Bill." His voice cracked under the weight of his heartbreak. "I thought we had something real, but maybe I was just fooling myself." Katie was silent for a moment before replying. "Carter, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but this is where my heart is. I hope you can understand." The call ended, leaving Carter alone with the echo of her words and the gnawing emptiness inside. He knew he had to move on, but the question was how and whether he even wanted to. Carter was left alone with the sound of her words and the gnawing emptiness inside after the call ended. He knew he had to move on, but the question was how and whether he even wanted to. Back at Forrester Creations, word quickly spread of Liam's engagement to Hope Brooke. Logan was overjoyed, and she immediately began organizing celebrations and soliciting favors from the best Los Angeles wedding planners. Brooke told Ridge over lunch, her eyes sparkling with hope and determination. This is the fresh start they both deserve. This is finally their chance at happiness after all the drama and suffering. Ridge, ever the stoic, nodded but couldn't shake a lingering unease. He had always been protective of Hope and Liam, sometimes a little too protective, and he knew how fragile Hope's heart was. He said softly, "I hope you're right, Brooke. However, the road ahead won't be simple. You are aware of the level of complexity here." Steffi Forrester, on the other hand, was not ready to just let Liam go. When she heard the news, her world seemed to crumble. She had put in so much effort to keep Liam in order to demonstrate to both herself and him that their love was worth saving. However, Liam's proposal to Hope appeared to be a final and definite goodbye. Steffi's pride forced her to cover up her pain, but the internal storm was not still. Opportunistic Thomas Forrester saw this as an opportunity to regain some control. In an effort to persuade Hope that Liam wasn't the man for her, he had spent months trying to win her back. Thomas's hopes and plans were directly threatened by Liam's proposal.
Thomas
Started to plan ways to disrupt the engagement, using Hope's weaknesses, Liam's family tensions, or any secret he
could find.
He was determined not to
Lose.
Carter's downward spiral became more apparent in the interim. He started missing meetings, avoiding friends, and spending late nights in seedy bars, drowning his sorrows. A gloomy silence replaced his once confident demeanor. When Katie reached out again, he refused to answer, feeling too betrayed to listen. One evening, Carter found himself at the office, the quiet hum of the computers and the dim lighting mirroring his mood. He kept hearing Bill Spencer's name as a constant reminder of what he had lost. Carter wrote a harsh email to Bill, accusing him of betrayal and manipulation, motivated by a mix of grief and rage. But before sending it, he hesitated, deleting the message. Instead, what use would it have? Carter muttered to himself. Bill always succeeds. Determined not to be beaten, Carter began considering alternative
plans.
If Bill had taken Katie, there might have been other legal, professional, or personal ways to respond. He began investigating Bill's business dealings, looking for potential vulnerabilities or scandals. Carter was desperate, but it was risky. Back with Liam and Hope, their engagement brought moments of genuine happiness amidst the chaos. At the cabin, they talked about their future, made plans for their wedding, and imagined a life in which their mistakes would not define them. It appeared to be possible for a while. Concerned that Thomas and Steffi might attempt to interfere, Hope shared her worries about them with Liam. Liam